Hey guys, welcome back to And That's Why We Drink.
Hello, hello, hello.
That is the beautiful M. Schultz.
Ah.
I am not going to sing.
Okay. Hello.
My name is Christine.
My name is not.
And
That's why we drink.
and that's why we drink.
Anyway, what you want to talk about
We're chilling
today?
here today. What are you drinking today?
To my left, I have sweet tea because I'm representing Virginia. And to my right, I'm drinking my milkshake of the day, which is strawberry, but it's frozen because we left it in the freezer for too long. So I'm waiting for it to thaw.
Oh, you're going to have to pee really soon.
Don't underestimate my bladder like that on live. It's not even live. on pre-recorded audio.
I'm sorry, I should have thought before I said anything.
Anyway, what are you drinking?
So,
Looks empty. That glass is actually empty.
No, this is a bottle. Here, I haven't filled it yet.
Oh.
This is a Smoking Loon Pinot Noir. And actually, I know you think my favorite is Cabernet. My favorite type of wine is
It's a
actually...
Shiraz.
It's not. It's a Pinot Noir. My favorite box wine is a Shiraz.
God.
But they don't have a Pinot Noir in a box.
Yet.
At
I'm
Trader
sure you'll
Joe's.
create it.
Probably I'm the only one who wants it. Trader Joe's, if you're listening.
My I don't know if it's my mom's favorite, but I always knew her to drink Pinot Grigio.
Well, that's
And-
a white, though.
I know. But fun fact, that's my favorite smelling wine.
Oh.
Is a Pinot
It's a
Grigio.
very fruity wine.
Maybe.
I like to pretend I know what I'm talking about.
Cool. I do that too, but in life in general.
But just with every topic.
Just smile and nod.
Yep. So I'm drinking a Smoking Loon Pinot Noir, and I actually really like this wine, and it's not expensive. I mean, surprise there. It's probably like $5. But I like it.
Good for you.
It's a good Pinot Noir.
I like this sweet tea.
Good.
Came out of a jug because I'm not in the South, so everything is preserved here.
Well, you know what? I gave you sweet tea, and now you're complaining about it.
It's the closest thing to homemade I can get in California, out of a container.
Well, I'm so sorry that we've disappointed you.
All right, well, what's next? Let's see if I get disappointed there.
So let's talk about why we're drinking.
Okay,
Okay.
who first? You?
All right, I'll go first. So I'm drinking today because I had this dream. And I'm one of those people who has like very vivid, like I'll go for a while without a dream, and then all of a sudden I'll have a dream that like 7 people have stabbed me to death. Like I just get very vivid, violent dreams. So
Cute.
this time, I know it's really sweet. So this time I had
It's like
dream.
a giant hug.
Yeah, it's like the universe really loves me. My subconscious wants me to feel really good. So I had a dream that my mother was pregnant.
Ew.
I know. And I woke up and I was like, ugh, like what a weird dream. And
Right.
I texted my mom and I was like, hey, how are you? And she goes, I had this dream that I was pregnant. And I was like, what? And I
Ooh.
called her and I was like, you didn't. You're lying. Like what? And she goes, yeah, I had this crazy dream that I was pregnant. I was like, I had a dream you were pregnant. And she goes, haha. And I'm like, no, it's not funny. I know. I was like, she goes, oh, I'm not pregnant. I'm like, are you sure? And she goes, well, I think so. And I was like, that's not an okay excuse. Ugh. And then she goes, maybe you should get checked out. And I was like, that's not funny.
Did you get checked out?
No, but I'm covered.
Okay.
I got something in my arm.
I'm covered too. Hashtag gay.
Yeah, fuck you. You're covered for life.
I just swaddle myself in a big rainbow flag. And
Yeah, you're like, I'm good. No babies in my uterus.
No,
Well,
not today.
I
Not
got
ever.
a rod in my arm that's supposed to prevent that, so
Yuck.
I got a doctor to sue if that's not working.
It's okay. It's equally unfair because you don't have to pay for babies when you finally want them. You know what I mean?
That's true.
You get a baby for free.
For free.
You do. Am I wrong?
I mean,
I have to file a lot of paperwork and hope someone doesn't hate me.
that's true. I do want to adopt babies, though, so
Oh, well, we can do that together.
that'll be cute.
Ah.
You will be the mom, and I'll be the mom, and it'll be adorable. And
Maybe-
Blaze can be the uncle,
Aw, that's fun.
and Gio can be the brother.
Yeah, let's throw the dog in
This
the
is
mix.
the first time I've ever like really weirded Em out.
I don't. I know. I was thinking kind of morbidly of like, oh, like, is this gonna happen in like time for Gio to be around? I know. That's why I kept my
I'm
mouth
just
shut.
thinking about my dog dying.
I won't say anything more.
We're moving on. I just wanted to mention about like having those similar dreams.
Well, my friend had a dream. Her stepsister had a dream, and her stepmom had a dream, where they saw different perspectives of it. Where her stepsister had a dream where she was sleeping in bed, facing the door and saw a strange man walking in with a knife. And then in her dream, her mom ran in behind the guy to defend her and stabbed him in the back. And then when she told her mom that story the next day, her mom said, oh, I had the same dream where I saw a strange man go into your room when you were sleeping with a knife. And so I followed him in and grabbed scissors off of the nightstand and then stabbed him. What? And both of them woke up right after that happened.
So what the hell?
I like to pretend that it was some sort of like astral projection thing where like there was actually like a spirit or something like in the house, and like both of their like they both had like an out of body, like there was some sort of like spiritual dimension fight.
Yeah. Ooh, a spiritual dimension fight.
You know, one of those things.
Well, one time when I was little, I don't feel good about this, and my friend from childhood does not, her name's Celine, and she does not like to let me live this down, but one night I had a dream that I killed her in the woods.
Cool. How'd you do it?
I summoned a jaguar.
Good for you. At least you keep it like original.
And it tore her to pieces. And then the next day I was so disturbed by it, and I saw her and we were kind of chatting, and she was like, I had this dream last night. She goes, it's pretty weird. I don't know if I like want to talk about it. I was like, what happened? She goes, I had a dream that you murdered me. And I was like,
well, really, you didn't.
What?
If you just summoned an animal.
Yeah, but in her dream, I actually killed her, like, by myself. So I don't know.
Your story's much cooler. You're like Aquaman for the safari.
Jaguar, murder my best friend. Yeah. So I don't know. We both had a dream, and she'll still, to this day, text me, like, out of the blue and say, remember that time we both dreamt that you murdered me? And I was like, it must be something fucked up about our... I don't know.
That's fine.
I'm the bad guy.
You know what? That's fine.
But that's why I'm drinking, because I don't like these shared dreams, because I feel like they're supposed to mean something, and like my mom's either pregnant or I'm pregnant, and both are just worse than the other option. And my friend,
we should look that up one day, like a dream dictionary.
I have one.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll Google it.
Okay.
In my book.
I'm drinking because I'm not allowed to say the show that we were working on, but it's a show that you like a lot.
Ooh.
Is
it Rick Steves Travels Europe?
No.
Damn it.
It's a scripted television show that everyone watches, so I don't know if I'm allowed to say it yet, because... Oh, do they know what I do? Have we said my job?
No.
I make props for TV and film. So, like, any prop you've seen on television, I probably made. I'm, like, one of 5 people that made it.
She gave me a tour of her work last week, and it was just the coolest thing I've ever seen.
I let her boyfriend hold Thor's hammer.
Like the actual Thor's hammer. Like, she literally got to hold the Captain America shield. Anyway.
I do what I can.
It's fine.
But so, there's a show we're working on right now where it hasn't come out yet, so I can't say what show because I don't want to, like, ruin the script.
Sure.
But, also, I signed a confidentiality form before I, Anyway. But there's a scene there's, like, a gag that's supposed to be about razors, like, razor blades.
Uh-huh.
And
that sounds like a really fun gag.
Well, you watch this show, so you let me know when you think it's hysterical or not.
Oh, boy.
If you see razors on the show I'm talking about,
ready.
You know that I made them. And basically we had to Greek these razors, and Greek means like label them with a generic name that doesn't actually exist, so it's cleared and you're not actually promoting a brand that hasn't given you clearance to use their name.
Sure.
So we were using razors that you just get from the store, so they had like the name on them, and we had to put fake labels on them, but they came in that thick plastic container, so we had to break them apart to put a label on top of them and then put them back in a new plastic covering. So we had to basically reconstruct an entirely packaged razor, and it took literally all day to do because the plastic was just being a bitch to try and reconstruct, and it was just annoying.
What a pain in the ass.
Anyway, all that for probably a 3-second gag about razors on a show that I don't even watch, so... And then I'm also drinking because my first childhood friend is pregnant. Right, that's how I should feel. But it's very much like, oh shit, the first one's pregnant, now like, time's a wasting. And everyone else is going to be like... All the parents are going to be tapping their watch on like, all right, when are you?
It's like dominoes. Like the first one goes down and everyone else
It's like how everyone gets engaged and then married. Now everyone's going to get pregnant. And I'm going to be like, well, shit, I'm a single gay. Like I got nothing.
Your uterus is empty.
And my ring finger is also empty.
Listen, mine is too.
And I'm an only child. My mother is going to start losing her hair trying to find me someone before she's going to be like, I didn't want to be a grandma at 90, Emily. And I'll be like, well, this is the best I've got.
Should have had more babies.
Yeah, this is all on you. Anyway, that's why I drink. A lot of reasons.
What a week.
Anyway.
Let's hear about some ghosts.
Yeah, let's do that. Well, I know you're going to like this because you've been weirdly hinting at it all day.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't even know what it is.
I know. It's on the board. Would you like to take a guess?
It's not Robert the doll.
Robert the doll.
Shut up!
Yeah. Yes, it is.
I
know.
I'm not kidding. I texted my friend earlier and she goes, are you doing an episode on Robert the doll earlier today?
I know. You told me this. You've been talking about Robert the doll like 5 different times
and
today.
I said, oh my God, my friend and I went to see Robert the doll. I hope you do it someday.
For our listeners, we have a whiteboard hanging in Christine's kitchen that has a list of all of the things we want to discuss one day. And I came to her apartment today and looked at the board, and the only thing written in the paranormal section was Robert the doll.
It's the only request I had.
And it was the only thing I had written notes for today, too. And I was like, well, thank God I did that.
This is blowing my mind. Okay.
And then,
I feel like
I mentioned Robert the doll, and I tried to play it cool, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll get to that one day. And Christine was like, no, my friend is desperate. You have to do that soon.
I lost my mind about it.
And I kept my mouth shut the whole night.
You just blew my fucking mind.
I told you I would.
I'm so excited.
Do you know the story then?
Yeah, because I went and saw it in Key West.
Well, then what the fuck am I doing with
I
these
don't
notes?
know. I don't remember. It's just the coolest story ever. It's
So
fucking crazy. Tell me everything.
So if I tell you this, are you going to care?
I'm going to be so shocked.
Okay.
I still have like postcards of him.
Ew.
I know, it's creepy. I send them to my friend every now and then to
Well,
scare
then
her.
jump right in if I
don't know anything anymore.
I don't know if I even believe you because you seem to really care about this guy.
Because I want to remember everything. It's been a couple years.
Okay, well, if I say something if I don't say something, or if it's wrong, please let me know.
I'm sure it's all going to be...
She's pouring her wine to the brim at this point.
You know?
We'll sit back and relax as I tell you the story of Robert the doll. All right. We start in the late 1800s of Key West, Florida. Your eyes have a twinkle I've never seen before.
So excited.
Like, I saw through your eyes, your body get chills.
I'm not kidding. My friend and I went on a tour and saw it, and then that night we did not sleep, and we stayed up all night because we were so freaked out. We didn't sleep, and like we've done every tour and creepy story. We did not sleep that night. Go on.
Well, get ready to not sleep tonight. Thank God it's basically Friday night. We can hang out after this.
Yeah.
I can tell you other stories, too.
I'm never going to sleep again.
Settle in, Christine.
Settled.
We're talking about the Otto family. Not Otto like car, Otto like rocket.
What's an auto rocket?
From Rocket.
Oh, rocket power!
There you go. I was going to wait for you to say it out loud.
Woo, woo.
Yeah.
My fave
We
show.
are riders on a mission. Okay. Anyway.
Rocket power.
Yeah, you got it.
Love it.
Okay. The Otto family. They were known for mistreating their servants. One of the servants that they mistreated was apparently a servant who was assigned to watch their 4-year-old son named Robert. And I don't know if I couldn't... A bunch of different sites were telling me that she was either Bahamian or Haitian. Most people said Haitian.
Yeah, well, we did the tour.
Why don't you tell me, Christine?
I don't know if it was accurate, but I learned she was Haitian.
All right, the student has spoken.
I mean, this is just from my
All right, grasshopper.
one-time tour.
Well, by 1905, around 1905, that same servant who was supposed to be watching Robert ended up getting fired because apparently Mrs. Otto saw her doing black magic. And then from getting fired, right before she left, she gave Robert a doll that was, quote, life-size, which was 3 feet tall, which I guess is a normal 4-year-old size.
Listen, I've seen this fucking doll, and it's literally like a child size. Like, it's a
it's
big-ass doll.
I read 40 inches tall.
Yeah, it's like one of those Barbies. You know when you were little?
Life-size Barbie.
Those used to scare the shit out of me at sleepovers.
Oh, they still do.
Stand in the corner. It's like that. It's like a big doll.
He had button eyes and, in theory, human hair, presumably Robert's hair.
Ew!
There's also a side to this story that says it's made from like a German factory, but I'm going to go with the human hair version.
Oh, I thought she made it.
Out of his hair. That's
Yeah.
what I thought. It was the first side I went with, and then I tried to, fact checked.
Sure.
And then they told me it was in Germany. And I was like, there's no Haitian slave going to Germany and buying a doll.
No, because if you see it, it's like all like jaggedy sewed up. Like it's not made in like a factory.
So we have all agreed he's made of human hair. So Robert ended up becoming very affectionate with this doll and named the doll after himself and named him Robert.
Which is fucking creepy. I just have to add like
Christy has a lot of opinions already.
Just naming a doll after yourself is creepy.
Sorry. There was a whole American Girl.
Yes, but you
like,
didn't
line
like
where
get
you...
a doll and you were like, I will name you Robert.
That's a lie. They made like custom dolls to look just like you and then name them after you. Yeah. I had an Emily doll.
But like if someone gave you like a toy, you wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to name you after myself.
That's fine. I mean, also I was just not much of a doll player, so I don't really remember.
You weren't a doll player?
You know what I mean? Like I just didn't play with them.
Yeah. They're not fun.
One time someone gave me a doll and I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? This just like took up a bunch of room in my...
They're so boring.
Anyway, I played with action figures. My mom should have seen it the whole time.
G.I. Joe!
Go, Joe!
I don't want a Barbie.
To this day, Captain America is like my favorite person on Earth. So.
I love that.
Okay, so he named the doll after himself and started dressing the doll in his clothes. Basically became best friends. Basically, it became best imaginary friends with him, but with an actual physical doll being there. So, like, would talk to him, would have him always sit at the table with them when they ate, would, like, pretend to feed him food, would tuck him into bed at night, like, treated him like a human being.
Right.
Robert started asking to be called Gene, which is his middle name, because Robert was the doll's name, not his. And Gene would be heard having conversations with Robert where he would speak normally and talk in his child voice, but Robert the doll would respond in a much lower voice.
Jesus.
And the mom assumes that Gene would be speaking in a really low voice in response, but after a while she couldn't tell because apparently, like, if the door was closed and she just heard the conversation, the voice was too low for a 4-year-old to be mimicking. Like, Ugh. It was just like a gargly, like, old man voice.
Ugh.
You know, how all dolls talk. So he started, Gene, the human being, not Robert the doll.
Gene, the human being.
He started getting really irritated often, and his mom didn't know what was going on and would ask, like, what was bothering him, and he would say that he, like, got in a fight with Robert the doll, or, you know.
Oh.
I had the same problem growing up. And so one day, his mom walked into the room to find Gene, like, sitting in the corner cowering while Robert the doll was perched in a chair staring at him. And, like, the son was, like, physically, like, shook. Like, he was, like, shaking. Literally shaking. And the doll was just staring at him in a chair.
Stop it.
Like, how sick is your imagination unless this doll is real?
Right.
Also, household objects were starting to get thrown across the room. Gene's toys would get destroyed. You would hear giggling in empty rooms down the hallway. Anytime, basically, that Gene got in trouble, he would tell people that Robert did it. And what's happening?
One time, I'm sorry, we went on this tour, and it was like a bus tour, and they had all these speakers on the bus, and they were telling us before we got to the museum where Robert was about this story. And in the speakers, like, my friend and I were the only people who were not, like, 65 years old on this tour. And we were sitting in the back, and all of a sudden, she's like, and then Robert would say that Robert did it. And all the speakers had, like, 25 children's voices, and they started going, Robert did it, Robert did it, Robert did it. And we just, like, didn't know what to do, so we burst out laughing. And the tour guide had to tell us, like, to stop behaving inappropriately on the tour. But it was the most outrageous. Like, 25 children's voices started coming from all the speakers going, Robert did it. And it, like, still haunts my nightmares.
But what kind of, like, hyped up 65-year-olds were on this bus where they went to go see a haunted doll?
I mean, this is like
I don't know a
this is
single
like Florida. We're not, you know.
Oh, it is Key West, Florida.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, you know, it's not like the most hip,
the land of retirees,
millennial town.
Well, I was gonna, like, I would love to go on a haunted tour with a bunch of 65-year-olds. I've just never met anyone cool enough to.
They didn't like us very much.
But the only 65-year-olds I know, like, want to play mahjong and.
Who the fuck do you know that wants to play mahjong?
Actually, to be fair, mahjong's a really fun game. Have you ever played?
No, because I'm not, like, from Japan and I'm not 70 years old.
Well, that's just racist.
That's a Japanese game.
It's a great game. So is Sudoku. That's a fun time.
I do love Sudoku.
There it is. All right, so anytime Gene got in trouble for anything at all, he would swear that Robert did it. Robert did it. Robert did it.
Robert did it.
And the parents ended up taking Robert the doll away and putting him in a box in the attic.
Ugh.
Where he stayed for several years.
Ugh.
And then Gene's attitude changed. He became like a normal kid again. And after the dad died, Gene was all grown up at this point and lived somewhere else. He was married and he was a famous artist. And but once his dad died, Gene ended up getting the house and the will. So he moves in and remembers it being so big. He was like, oh, I can make the attic like my painting room.
Mm-hmm. Was he still Gene by this point?
He still went by Eugene until he died.
Okay.
Which says something, too. Why wouldn't you just...
It's a little weird.
Whatever. So he ends up thinking, oh, the attic would be a great place to paint. And when he gets up to the attic, he finds the box that Robert has been sitting in this whole time. So he finds it all and immediately becomes attached to it all over again.
Ugh.
And then my next bullet is, wife not pleased.
I don't fucking blame her. Jesus.
So, just like childhood would take the doll literally everywhere, they kept him in a chair next to the bed when they were sleeping at night.
What?
Can you imagine?
No.
Can you imagine? Imagine, so Christine's dating this guy who has a really cool name named Blaze.
Blaise. There's no Z. It's just got
the French version, not the fun version.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if, like, all of a sudden you and Blaze move somewhere and he's like, oh, here's this doll, and then just starts, like, holding it by the hand everywhere and feeding it and then, like, putting it next to your bed and
Ew.
talking to it.
And we have to eat dinner with it, and it sits by our bedside and watches us sleep, and it's a life-size doll? No. That's not a thing.
Yeah. It's a thing here.
Well, fuck that.
So, the wife casually goes insane and dies.
What?
That was literally all the information I got.
That's what happened back then. People just, like, went insane.
I'm sure there was, like, a real reason, but I thought it'd be more ominous if I left it at that. So.
There was no mental health awareness. People just went insane and died.
Yeah, they were like, oh, hysteria, there it is.
Her corset's too tight. She's gone.
So, he's still hanging out with Robert, and you can, like, people are saying, like, you could see Robert, like, looking at them through windows, or he would move across the room when you weren't looking. Like, you would leave him somewhere, and then turn around, and then he'd be in the other side of the hall, just staring at you. You know.
It's so
how
creepy.
dolls are.
Ugh.
And so, eventually, Gene also dies. Again, I chose not to look up how. I assume Robert did it. Robert did it.
Stop.
Robert did it. So then...
I'm gonna have nightmares.
So, then I think I forgot to read another bullet. There's something in between here that I didn't write down. But basically, it ends up being a vacant house, and Robert stays in the house. Like, the doll just, like, got left there.
Yeah.
And, like, 13 years later or something like that, someone ends up buying the house, finding him in there, and, like, Robert the doll was, like, also making them go crazy, where people would get locked in rooms that he was sitting in. Like, if they found him in there and then saw him and closed the door behind them, they were now stuck in that room with him until someone could open the door. Or you would hear evil laughter on a different floor. And, you know, the usual. So,
it's horrible.
In 1974, Myrtle Reuter is the name of the new person who moves into the house. She's the new person that moved in and, like, was experiencing all this stuff. And she has a daughter that by 1974 has now gotten a little older and is trying to play with the doll herself.
Oh, no.
And she's now, like, in her 50s or something like that. But she has, like, if there's ever been a documentary about her or someone's, like, gone up to her and asked about it, she swears that her only memories of that doll are it trying to kill her when they were alone.
What?
She, like, won't go into it. She's like, he tried to kill me. That thing tried to fucking kill me. I will never talk about it. She thinks, like, if she even talks about it, like, its energy will, like, go to her. And so she's like, I'm not going there. But all she remembers of living in that house for, like, 10 years is it trying to kill her. You would think by that point you'd just throw the fucking doll away.
Why the fuck is
Or put it in a fire.
I would burn it.
Yeah. I don't know why people... Every story I tell, I just don't get why people didn't leave.
Right. Get out.
So the family moved in. They found him. put him in the attic. A lot of shit happened. The daughter is trying to, like, survive every day.
God.
And then the final, like, blow of it was the owner one time woke up hearing a child's laugh and looked at the foot of her bed, and it was sitting at the foot of her bed holding a knife laughing.
Stop it.
I won't.
I don't like it.
So they fled the house, and Robert was moved in 1994. So 20 years. I'm sorry. The girl had to deal with this for 20 years of avoiding getting killed by him. In 1994, they end up donating him to the East Martello Museum in Key West. And the doll is now 110 years old. Or like over 110, because it was 1905. Mm-hmm. Fuck, that's a old doll. So he currently sits in a glass box, but people still say that he's haunted and can even curse you from far away. So maybe that girl had something right not talking about him.
Yeah.
People regularly see him move in the glass box, or his smile will turn into a scowl. And one employee remembers cleaning him, and the next day he was sitting in a different position with dust all over his shoes, even though he had just been cleaned. Or people will hear tapping on the case when they're not looking, and then they'll turn around and his hand will be pressed against the case. Like he'll like almost like giving a high five or like a Heil Hitler, like through the glass.
Jesus.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you take a picture with him, which I know you tried to do.
I did that.
Yep. We'll talk about it. If you take a pic with him, a pic. That's how I wrote it.
We're really hip.
I did all this in shorthand. If you take a pic, W/him, the letter U, you have to ask politely. You have to ask politely to get a picture with him. And if his head tilts, apparently you have permission. And if you take a picture anyway, then he'll curse you and whoever you came to the museum with. A lot of times cameras also won't work around him, where they'll just shut down. And the museum says they get between 1 to 3 apology letters a day addressed to Robert the doll for being disrespectful and taking his picture without his permission. And the last thing was also apparently someone heard, I don't know how accurate this is, but someone heard that in history they heard that Robert the doll likes candy or sweets, or that's what like Jean would feed him, like give him candy. And so when they heard that Robert the doll might like candy, now people will send candy with their apology letter, hoping that he will break the curse that he's caused on them. Because a lot of people have claimed that they've gotten in car accidents or broken their bones or lost jobs, like within a week of having taken a picture of him without his permission.
It's really spooky. I mean, we went and it was twisted. When we walked in, our tour guide literally told us, you have to say, hello, Robert. I respect you.
Even on the bus, you and your friend were laughing, and he was like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, they were like...
They're all afraid.
They were like, don't do that.
What does it mean? It said if he tilts his head, you have permission. Is that... Because my thought is, if you can really get that intelligent of a reaction right away, then why does anyone not believe in ghosts?
That when I was there, that wasn't a thing. The way they presented it to us was, you have to politely say, I hope it's all right if I take a photo with you, and then you have to thank him for the photo, and then...
So just be polite all around?
Yes, and like when we walked in, he literally said, he goes, I don't care if you believe it or not, you have to say, like, hi, Robert, it's so good to see you. We don't mean you any harm. Like, it was just very weird and trippy, and then they had an entire room of letters and candy that people had mailed. Yeah.
So all my research was right
Yeah,
so far.
No, it was. And they had a whole room of just walls of letters of people being like, and like kids writing to him and like grown-ups writing to him and people mailing stuff. I mean, it's pretty weird. It's creepy.
We'll post a picture of him on social media, but he is a fucking creepy doll.
I mean,
he looks like he's a,
a haunted doll.
He looks like a haunted doll.
It's like what you imagine.
He looks like a 110-year-old haunted doll,
like child-sized doll.
Is he really child-sized?
Yeah, he's like 3 feet tall. And I mean, the thing with it too is that our tour guide was like this 30-year-old dude, and he was living in Florida, and he's like, I'm just doing this tour guide job, but he goes, we're not allowed to close up at night alone. Like, there needs to be 2 people, because people get locked in, people get, like, the lights will turn back on, and people will get fired or in trouble because we didn't close properly. But so 2 people always have to be there at night to close up, turn the lights off, lock the doors, to make sure they can like be accountable with each other, make sure they don't get locked in rooms. And he said closing is the worst. Like, nobody wants to close. He says it's so normal now that they'll walk in and the doll will just be in different
Places?
positions. Yeah, just totally different positions.
Will he at least stay in the case?
Yeah, he's in the case, but he'll just move.
Is it surrounded by holy water? Like, I don't, like, how, if you
it's
can...
this big glass case, and he just sits in it. And he literally, I mean, this guy's like...
How come no one has, like, just, like, left a video camera running or a
Oh,
security
I think
camera?
they do. I think they have videos of just
I would love
him
to, like,
shifting.
see security footage of his leg just, like, shifting in the middle of the night for no reason.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to look it up.
I also wonder why he stays in the case, because if you have the ability to...
But think about him in that box, you know? He was kept in that box for...
Oh, like it's
for years?
like it's a home for him?
No, but just like he didn't
Oh, that's true.
go anywhere.
He stayed in the box.
Until somebody else got him out.
You
But-
would think if he's a doll with enough, like paranormal, like, strength in him to move, he could just, like, with his little legs that kick all the fucking time, apparently, just kick the box open. You know? Like, who knows that, like, if he was sitting up there in an attic.
Well, maybe he likes to just sit there and like curse people.
Yeah, I mean, every time anyone's ever seen him do anything scary, he was just sitting and staring.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you, like...
I mean, maybe that's just what he's meant to do.
But anytime anyone saw him, he's also, like, moved from room to room by himself. I wonder why
That's
a box...
true.
Like, his kryptonite is a fucking box? Like...
Maybe. Plexiglass?
That's weird.
I don't know. But wasn't the theory that she was doing like voodoo and
That was the thought that the Haitian servant who gave him the doll...
because she was fired.
Yeah, that the last black magic she did there was to curse a doll, to put a curse on the family for firing her.
Right, so she created
with.
a doll
I should have
to
said
look
that.
like the sun. And I remember...
Well, I mean, if it is made of his human hair, like, how... That's pretty typical black magic in my book of, like, taking, like, some sort of, like, hair or skin or something from
the victim or whatever.
And putting a curse on it and then giving him his own cursed human hair.
Well, that was the thing
and then having him, like, always next to it.
Yeah, I remember them saying that it was very weird because the family, they had a falling out. They fired her. They did not leave on good terms. And they found she had left the doll in the child's room. And I remember the tour guide saying it was very weird because the parents were like, we just had this huge falling out. Like,
why would she give us a doll?
Yeah, she like cursed us and like stormed off, but she had like time to make this doll and left it in Robert's room and it looked exactly like him. Like,
I thought as if I have an employee who's doing black magic, I'm not gonna fucking fire her. Like, she officially has a job forever. Like, she's got it. Like, if I knew someone had the ability and the knowledge to put any voodoo hex on me, I'd be like, you now have all of my loyalty and respect.
I bow down to you.
You want a raise? You fucking got it.
Well, and the thing is, like, clearly they believed in it. If they were like, we don't want you doing black magic here, get out.
I mean, maybe they, like, didn't believe in it and assumed that she was just crazy, and now they're, like, getting a taste of their own medicine.
You're wasting time on our dime. I don't know.
But, I mean, if you're right. If you're scared enough of someone doing black magic that you're willing to fire them, you must believe in it a little.
Yeah. It's a little weird.
Any of my future employers, just do black magic, and I'll give you a job.
Voodoo.
Because I'm afraid of you officially.
I'll make a doll the size of Emily and give it to her.
Don't. I'm 6 feet tall. Don't give someone a life-size Emily doll.
I'll use your human hair.
Ugh.
Oh, that story always gets me, I tell you.
Well, I hope I did it justice with your friend.
No, you did. We're going to post photos. Look up Robert the doll.
He is literally the creepiest thing on earth.
It's so...
Nobody could wake up and find that at the foot of their bed and be not scared.
Right. I mean, it's been probably 4 years since I went there, and I regularly think about it and get... I'm not kidding. Like,
I think about this every day.
No, but like I've gone to like plenty of ghost tours and paranormal, but that is the one thing that like still spooks me for some reason.
Well, there's something about dolls.
There is.
Especially like, have you seen like the dolls in like Amish communities? I'm part of a lot of Amish communities.
I live right by an Amish community.
I do too. We live right by a big Amish town.
Yeah.
But their dolls don't have faces.
What?
Mm-hmm. Like they have like blank. It's like you know the stick figures on like on a public restroom sign. It's like that is a 3D doll.
Why?
It's like a. I should know it, but there's like a very obvious reason. It's like they don't want like a.
Yeah, they don't like to have like their representations of themselves.
it's something about like maybe modesty
Yeah.
or like,
because they don't like photos or anything where like they're replicated on another.
I don't know what it is.
Well,
I mean, we're literally spewing bullshit right now.
Well, no, but
there's something like that. It's something about modesty or like it would give you ideas of like how you should look or something like that.
Because I don't think they like to replicate the human form. Like, I don't think they like any sort of photos or drawings of themselves.
Also, are they a community? I know this is more like an Indian tribal community, but they don't like pictures taken of them because they think that like part of their soul gets taken in the picture.
Exactly.
I don't know if that's so much Amish, but it's something on that level.
No, that's Amish too, yeah.
It is?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Anyway, that's Robert the Doll.
Robert the Doll is going to haunt my nightmares forever.
All right. Also, there's now a tab on their website where you can get your own Robert the Doll.
If you ever...
I will not.
I will never forgive you.
I swear I will not. I don't want to ever hold something that looks like that.
I don't ever want... I mean,
especially because it's probably made like in the room next to the actual Robert the Doll. Like a little bit of his spirit might go into all of them.
If I were Robert the Doll, I would for sure curse all of those replicas.
I don't even want to think about it.
It's horrible.
But it says like get your own Robert the Doll as a tab, and I was like firm fucking pass.
I should send that to my friend Celine, who saw the doll with me. This is a test to see if she's actually listening to our podcast. All right. Well, let me just move on to something even more
heartwarming,
just horrible.
Okay.
Or heartwarming,
depending on the kind of person you are.
Yeah, but it's pretty much horrible.
Okay.
So this is something that, like, speaking of personal things that really upset me, this is something I remember being in the 5th grade and this being a huge story, and for some reason, my social studies teacher...
What is this? Do I know about this?
Yes, I think. He took it upon himself to drag us through this whole case. It's the Elizabeth Smart kidnapping.
Yeah, I know this.
Yeah. And instead of studying any sort of history or social studies, he spent the entire year, I remember my mom being so mad, teaching us, like telling us every little bit about this case, and like we followed along with it. And I remember not sleeping. I remember telling my mom like we had to get an alarm system. Like,
oh yeah, it was I think everyone our age who currently has some form of OCD about being alone in a house it's because it was the first story we ever heard about.
Yeah,
was the Elizabeth Smart case.
It was a really upsetting case.
I remember not knowing anything about. I mean, we were so young. I don't really remember ever having to pay attention to the news, and this was the first time that I remember something being on the news all the time.
Right. It was huge. And I was 2 years younger than my little sister is now, and I don't even want her to know about stuff like this. And just thinking...
So listen up, girl.
Yeah, hope you're not listening. And so I just remember... it just really shook me. And I remember going home and being like, Mom, we need... And we had break-ins growing up and stuff, so I was like, we need to
I never had a... That's like... Of all the things that I've ever experienced, thank God I've never experienced a break-in. That is truly the most petrifying
That was like
ever.
something that was sort of standard in my childhood for some reason.
Jeez,
I don't know
you're
if we
badass.
were cursed or what, but...
We had a friend that I went to school with, and she was one of my neighbors down the street, and they got broken into like 5 times, and I don't know how thank God they didn't go 5 more houses down.
Right.
But, like, there's nothing scarier to me than that kind of, like, violation.
Well, that's a thing.
Like, I mean, remember that episode where I talked about Tamra?
Yeah.
The reason The Strangers is the scariest thing on earth to me is because someone is coming into your home.
Right.
And you're now helpless in the place that you're supposed to consider the safest.
There's nothing more, like, violating than that.
Ugh, it freaks me the fuck out.
Yeah.
All right, take it away.
I'm going to just keep talking about it.
I'm just going to fucking stress drink.
Okay, so there's some details on this that are just really interesting, so I just thought we'd go through it.
Bring me back to 5th grade.
Here we go, 2002, baby. June 5th, 2002, 14-year-old Elizabeth Ann Smart was abducted from her bedroom in the wealthy Federal Heights neighborhood
I already hate it.
Salt Lake City. Her younger sister, who was 9 at the time, named Mary Catherine, witnessed the abduction as they shared a bedroom.
Nope.
I know. It
Abso-fucking-lutely not.
Gets
oh
me
my God.
to my core. I mean, we were like 11, 10 years old. This is just so, okay. She pretended to be asleep as she watched this man take her sister by knife point out of her bed. She pretended to be asleep, She could hear the man tell her sister Elizabeth to be quiet so he wouldn't hurt her. And she remembered recognizing his voice, but she wasn't sure where she had heard it.
Oh my God.
So
Christine, I've never actually had a problem with any of the stories we've told yet. You really just like brought it home today, didn't you?
We're not gonna sleep tonight.
Oh, could I spend the night?
Yes, we're gonna have to buy some sage. Does Albertson sell sage?
I think sage is not needed for the story.
I think sage is needed.
I think a Bible is needed for
I have a Bible. We'll get it out. Okay, so she snuck out of bed to tell her parents, but she saw the two of them in the hallway, looking into her brother's room. So she snuck back into bed, pretended to be asleep for 2 hours quietly, waiting for them to leave.
To this day, can you imagine the guilt that fucking girl has?
9 years old.
Oh my God.
Like a little baby. So
she's our age.
She's she's our age. Yeah,
the little sister. She's 24 now.
She would have been our age. Yeah,
she's 20. I'm 24.
God. So
oh my God.
She this is what she said later. She later told police, "I thought, be quiet." This was when she was 9.
Right.
Because if he hears you, he might take you too, and you're the only person who's seen this happen.
What a smart fucking girl.
I know. So she was like, "I know what happened. I can't be kidnapped. Not because I don't want to be kidnapped, but because I don't want my sister to be taken without me knowing what happened."
God, she's a brilliant child.
She's my favorite.
Weren't they all brilliant children in some way or another? Like, Elizabeth Smart was known to play.
Yeah, she played the harp.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They all did something.
They're very
really
successful, like, smart children, yeah.
Jesus.
So what happened was she finally felt safe. It was around 4 a.m. She finally felt safe enough to run into her parents' room. She told them Elizabeth was gone. Her dad told her she was just having a bad dream, but when her father got up to, like, bring her back to her room and didn't see Elizabeth, Mary Catherine told her dad, "You're not going to find her. A man came and took her. He had a knife." That's when he went downstairs, noticed a screen window that had been cut open with a knife.
Oh my God.
I know. And called the police.
Oh, this shit makes my skin crawl.
I know. And the reason they lived in a multi-million-dollar house, wealthy, safe neighborhood in Salt Lake City. The reason they didn't even have they had an alarm system, but the reason they didn't have it on was because the dad said, like, sometimes the kids, they had 6 kids, and they said sometimes the kids would get up at night and it was a motion sensor alarm, and he said,
I don't care. I would rather wake up 10 times a night to find out my kid made a fucking sandwich than wake up and find out one of my kids is gone.
So he said that night they just didn't turn it on because they knew, like, the kids were going to be up and about, so they just were like, well, we'll leave it off.
My mother, I swear I've been telling her since I was a child, probably because this floated around in my whole psyche. I always told her, please get an actual alarm. And I promise you, she always says, oh, we'll do it later. And it has been literally 20 years.
Linda, get an alarm.
Get a fucking alarm.
We have one, and it has saved our asses.
I'll
tell you about that break-in another day. Anyway, so a massive search began for Elizabeth. They couldn't find her. They actually arrested a handyman who ended up being innocent, but he died in jail from a brain hemorrhage. So it was just, like, really tragic. The guy was in jail. He said, I had nothing to do with this. And then he died of a brain hemorrhage, and they were like, oh, wait, he was innocent. So that was kind of upsetting.
God.
Then they had no leads, and for several months they had no leads. In October, several months later, Mary Catherine, the little sister, suddenly remembered where she had heard Elizabeth's captor's voice. And she said to her parents, I know who it is. I remember where I heard his voice. She said it was that man named Emmanuel who worked at their house for one day in the November before. And the Smarts, the family, they were known for helping unemployed people in the community by hiring the homeless and hiring people who were unemployed to come to their house and do odd jobs around the property. So one man named Brian David Mitchell, who called himself Emmanuel, had helped out on the roof raking leaves for just one day for about 5 hours. And Mary Catherine had this moment where she thought, oh my God, that's where I remember the voice, this guy who came to our house. So the police were skeptical, and they thought, she's only met him once a year ago. She's 9. She doesn't know what she's talking about. So they didn't follow through. The family fully believed Mary Catherine. And
Good for them.
Yeah, they actually hired a sketch artist to draw Emmanuel's face because they all remembered him. And they really...
It's so weird that someone works on your property for 5 hours and everyone a year later remembers his face and voice.
He must have been a weirdo.
He either must have been a weirdo or they must have had like that visceral gut feeling of like, remember this shit.
Well, they knew it was... And he was a weird... I mean, even just reading his background, he was a weird guy. So I don't think... Like, I think he was pretty memorable. Okay. He was the kind of guy he wrote his own scripture about how he was the Messiah. So, I mean, he was just...
I feel like I tell a lot of stories about irresponsible parents. And you tell a lot of stories of parents that just, like, believe their kid to the end. Like, when you did the Solder Children.
Yeah.
In this episode. And then I did the story about, like, a ghost throwing a dog against a wall and a chandelier falling on their child. And they're like, whatever.
We'll be fine.
It says a lot.
Ugh. So they actually used a sketch artist. They released the image to the media, and John Walsh, the guy who hosts America's Most Wanted, who had his own child abducted, revealed it on Larry King Live and on his own show, America's Most Wanted. Literally the day after America's Most Wanted aired, a guy bicycling in Sandy, Utah, noticed a man walking with 2 women wearing veils covering every part of their body.
Oh, I remember this.
Except their eyes. So he alerted police, told them like what intersection he had seen them on. They rescued Elizabeth wearing a gray wig, sunglasses, and veil. And what she actually said to them when they rescued her was, "Oh, I know who you think I am. You think I'm that Elizabeth Smart girl." Just spooky.
Wow.
And they took her in and interrogated her and found out it was indeed Elizabeth Smart.
So was she brainwashed into really thinking that she wasn't Elizabeth Smart, or did she have Stockholm syndrome and like feel for the guy, or was she afraid that if she outed herself she would die?
I think there was a mix of those things. It's not totally clear, but I know that a lot of people theorize that she had Stockholm syndrome. Mm-hmm. She was held captive for 9 months just with this man and his wife.
Oh my God.
And she was 14. And so a lot of people do theorize that. Her dad, to this day, says that's not what it was. Like, she was just trying to...
I'll stay alive.
Protect her family. And she also had said that they threatened her with violence and death. They threatened her family. They threatened her siblings. So it's kind of unclear, but
I feel like at that point you're just... I mean, it sounds like they just manipulated her enough to be like, pretend you're not you or else we'll kill other people. Just... And, I mean, the craziest thing about this whole story is that she was in the community. Like, she was... Just around.
Yeah, and people were...
She probably saw people she knew all the time.
Oh, all the time.
Just so... She could have asked for help at any second.
Exactly, and people were looking for her and ran into her, and...
At least that had to be comforting for her, though, to, like, walk around town and see signs, like, knowing that people were looking for her. You know?
Yeah.
Like, at least she knew if she heard any buzzing...
Yeah.
But then that also makes like her captor an idiot, because if he's walking around with her and sees that people are actively looking for her, wouldn't he want to bring her somewhere else?
Well, the weird thing was that he was so good at... Well, I mean, okay. Just as an example, at one point the threesome, so it was him, his wife, and Elizabeth, went to a party in town, and... they were drinking beer. She had her like costume on, her veil. And I actually read an article by a woman who is Mormon, and she said, to be honest, like, it sounds so wacky that this guy's walking around with a young woman in a veil, mm-hmm. and another woman who's his wife. But she said it's really not that abnormal to see like a guy walking around with 2 women. There's like, mm-hmm. Polygamy and that kind of thing, and people take young brides, and there's weirder things. So it's not like a gigantic red flag necessarily in the Mormon community. The host of the party was like kind of taken aback because this guy, Mitchell or Emmanuel or whatever, was trying to force the girl to drink absinthe, and she refused to drink it. I mean, remember, she was 14 at this point.
But like, also, how strong are you to say no to someone at 14 who's like keeping you captive?
Yeah.
I feel like if they're molesting you and threatening to kill your family, if they say drink absinthe, you just fucking shut up and drink the absinthe.
Yeah, I guess they tried to pour it down her throat and she like wouldn't swallow it.
So did he really think that she like happily was with him at this point? Or did he know that she didn't want to be there?
I mean, I'll just give you like a brief timeline. What happened was he kidnapped her, made her hike up the mountains behind her house, held her captive literally behind her house in the hills for several months. She was chained to a tree.
Oh.
The first night he had a wedding ceremony where he, quote unquote, made her his wife, raped her several times. Every day of her captivity, he raped her. And
oh my God.
I know. And she had mentioned later that she didn't talk about that for many years, but she said later that that was just the most horrible part because she was raised in such a conservative Mormon community that like she had committed herself to celibacy until marriage. And then she was raped every day at least once for 9 months. And she said, and she was 14. And she said when she went back and tried to be a normal life and she went to high school in her Mormon community and they did these classes about like if you have sex,
right, modesty and all that,
right, and like if you have sex, men don't like you're not going to be desirable, you're not going to be wanted. And God. She said it was just the most horrible thing to be like. And they use these metaphors like, oh, it's like a wooden or you're like a beautiful picket fence, and every time you have sex with someone, like you just get like nails screwed into.
Right, it's like the flower thing where if everyone takes a petal off of a flower at the end of the day, do you really want like this flower with no petals?
Exactly. And she said it was just all those metaphors that made her feel. It was just like a horrible
no one asked
thing.
her to like step out of the room.
She said in her interview, she said, I couldn't believe they knew I was sitting there and they just kept the conversation going about this. And so I think that was just the worst part. But anyway, so she was.
That's the worst part, not the actual getting raped.
Well, I mean, I think the worst part of
the worst aftermath.
Yeah. And so she obviously, so she was held captive for several months. And after a few months, he allowed her to be free. I mean, personally, I don't know, and I don't want to like make any assumptions, but from what I've read, it sounds like she did have Stockholm syndrome because he took her into town, he took her to shops. They went after that party, like a little while after that, the three of them went to the library downtown and they were confronted by a homicide detective who knew, like everyone was looking for her and he knew that she was in disguise. People had said like, look for someone who's covered up or who's, you know, and he had been told there was like this report. He approached them and asked Elizabeth to take off her veil. But Mitchell, the man, stepped in and he said, like, back off. This is part of our religion. Like, my wife can't show you her face and she can't speak in public. Like, you're threatening our religion. And somehow, oh, I'm sorry. He said she was his daughter and that his wife was his wife. And the officer said Mitchell stayed calm through 15 minutes of questioning. The officer said, I couldn't find any reason that he was lying. I didn't want to like step on his toes and threaten his religion. So he let him go and to take Elizabeth back. And I think what they said later when they tried to, during the trial, his defense attorneys tried to claim that he tried to plead insanity. And one of the pieces of evidence that he fully understood what he was doing, is that he was able to lie about it successfully to a detective, making up a story about how she was his daughter and it was part of his religion. Like, he knew what he was doing was totally wrong, and he made up a whole like lie about it because he knew that the detective was going to figure him out. So that was kind of what they used to incriminate him as being fully.
This is horrible.
It's really dark. Obviously.
Wow, you really picked a winner.
Well, I mean, it's also dark because it's more recent. I feel like a lot of these serial killer stories are from the 50s and 60s, and they feel so far away. Yeah, and they're part of culture
detached.
now. Yeah, and it's...
Well, this is also something that we actually experienced.
Sure.
Like, not to say
we were the same age.
Not to say that Jonestown is like a funny thing to talk about, but it's something we've never had to hear people speaking about as relevant news.
It's like more removed for us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole thing with him, according to his stepson, he ate a large dose of LSD in the Utah desert, realized God wanted him back in the Mormon church, so he took his third wife, devoted himself to the church, took it way too far, obviously. Ended up outside as like a well-known beggar in the downtown area. He would curse people who didn't give him money. He would hold his arms out and pretend he was Jesus Christ being crucified. Ugh. He wrote an entire 27-page revelation called The Book of Emmanuel David Isaiah. Gave copies to friends and relatives. He believed he was like the Messiah.
What friends did he have who, if they followed the same kind of original initial religion as him, would grab this book out of him and be like, "You're crazy."
He was actually excommunicated from the church the same week he kidnapped Elizabeth Smart.
So like this is like
it might have been a trigger,
a mental break.
It might have been. So, I mean, so church authorities obtained a copy of this like book he wrote and excommunicated him the same week he took Elizabeth Smart. And actually, it's kind of telling his father wrote a 900-page document about how he was like the second coming. And he wrote about how he had to have sex with young women it was part of his religion, and how they could only eat a vegetarian diet, and just all these wacky things. And 900 pages. So that was his father. So obviously he was not in a good mental state as a child. So the whole thing is twisted, but I mean, thankfully she was found safe. She's now spends her life advocating for rape victims and kidnapped children.
Oh my God.
It's crazy. She's done a lot of work. She's met with presidents. She's done a lot of TV shows. She's written a memoir, and yeah.
But like, as great of things that you're doing, like I cannot imagine
recovering from that.
Like there's no recovering from it.
No. I mean, especially even your family. Like that's just.
Ugh.
So, I mean, in the end, like she's helped a lot of people, but
this
obviously
is just Tamara in real life. That's all.
Just getting to you. It's a dark story, and it's something that I want to talk about because I remembered it growing up and remembered how much it just shook me. And I went home and I told my mom, lock the damn doors. Like,
yeah, I didn't remember. I remember like seeing it in pieces on the news, but I think either my parents were trying to protect me or the news just wasn't on a lot. But yeah. I mainly heard about it, that I knew that it existed, and then they made like some version of like a Lifetime movie about it. Right. And I remember watching that and getting all the pieces at the same time and being like, oh shit, like that really happened. Like I remember the scene in that movie where the guy abducts her and the little sister is hearing it. Like
that little girl, I mean, I just remember the moment, like, because my teacher, truly, he made us follow the whole story, like, in class. And I remember thinking, my mom was not happy because I was coming home in tears every day. And she was like, you should be learning about not this, like, about history.
I mean, technically, that was a really smart teacher because he was teaching you history that wasn't yet history.
Sort of.
He's, like, teaching you history because he knew it would become history.
Yeah, he was sort of one of those people that, like, shock value, though. Like, he would come into class and tell us, like, murder. Like, it was just... I think he liked to be the shock value guy so that we would go home and be like, wow, like, guess what we learned? And he really, like, a lot of parents were like, please stop telling us about how they're going to get abducted in the night out of their beds. They're 11 years old. Like, let's save that for whether the parents want to talk about it.
I had a teacher who taught history, and I think he was a vet with PTSD because he taught it a little too intensely. Like, he treated us like soldiers. And he told us he was doing it for the... like the real life perspective of war. And I was like, we're 9.
Right.
We don't know and we don't care.
And that's a thing that like you learn from your parents or from, you know what I mean? Like you get exposed to that in real life. Not like you don't need to learn that at age 9 at school.
I mean, it definitely left an imprint though. Sure. So if that was his goal, he did it.
I mean, I didn't sleep for weeks after this. And my mom was like, God damn it. Like, look what you've done. And I remember it being fascinating and terrifying. I mean, and the whole thing where he would walk around with her in a veil and she just saw family and friends and didn't say any. I mean, it really got to me. And the part about the little girl seeing her sister get abducted and then months later saying, oh, it was that guy. I remember him now. I mean, it just gets to me.
It's just like, I guess if you had to break down my biggest fear, it's just the sense of helplessness.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
I just not to say that I always need to be in control, but I hate not having the option to be in control.
Especially in your safe zone, you know?
Especially in like the place you're supposed to feel the safest.
Yeah. So that just really got to me. Anyway, so I thought that's a big one. Get out of the way.
Well, what am I supposed to say now? Like, good job? Like,
I was supposed to take a drink and just understand that that's why we drink.
that one got me.
Whew. This is a heavy episode.
What did I say in the first episode? My core was rocked.
My core was rocked. Dude, I don't know. Do you think our parents are still even listening to this?
No. Well, I know my mom had an opinion about the last couple episodes we did.
Oh, do I want to know it or not?
Oh, I mean, it's just she just live tweeted her opinions as she listened.
What?
This is but here's the thing, because, like, side note, these are pre-recorded. So the one that's most recently out, that's the one that she did
Oh, yeah.
a live tweet on.
What did she say? I'm nervous.
And by live tweet, I mean text, so don't try
Oh,
to,
I was like, I didn't
try
see
to,
her tweets.
Don't try to find my mom on Twitter. She literally got a Twitter just so she could follow me. And by follow me, not even like Twitter follow me, but like call me and ask me what all my tweets mean. So as she listened, she texted me these things in this order.
Oh, God.
I do not drink barefoot. Yuck.
What?
So everyone, go listen to episode 2 while I read out my mother's opinions.
Linda!
I thought she did. And I said, then why is it always in the house and empty? And she said, I bought it for my friends. They drink it in mass. Then she said, I drink Prisoner. That will go well with your show. And then she said, make them sponsor you. As if I can just call Prisoner wine.
Make them.
Yeah. I said, I'll make sure to let them know. She says, next, if Barefoot was in the house, it was because I did not drink it. I like fit wine. Very tasty. And then she said, Halo ice cream. Yum, yum. And then she said, imagine Halo flavored or wine flavored Halo.
Oh, yes. I'm imagining that.
Then she said, your dream come true. I want to eat and drink with Christine.
Woo! My dreams are all coming true.
And then she says, because we talked eventually about like how we don't succeed at anything. And
That's a fun conversation.
I mean, it's just also the reality. She says, when you told me you were starting a podcast, I didn't unscrew the wine bottle. I had my butler serve it to me. Like, because my mom thinks she's a fucking comedian now that there's a platform for people to hear her jokes. Then she said, next time you get an Oreo McFlurry, add M&Ms. They will do it if you pay them for it. Because my mother's the expert now.
Actually, you should get your butler to do it for you. That's the real way.
And Christine's coming in hot with the jokes.
But,
she then said, the next thing, it'll probably become the caption to a t-shirt that she's on at some point.
Great.
I want to meet her dog.
It's going to be a picture of her and my dog.
Oh, and then we started talking about how our friends had tuberculosis and cholera.
Scarlet fever.
Yeah. And I said, all we need is someone with dysentery. Mm-hmm. So she says, Uncle Joey got dysentery last year while traveling in Peru.
Oregon Trail, bitches.
We've done it.
The trifecta.
So I wrote to her and I said, I'll make sure to get all of this addressed in episode 7. And she said, why not 6? And I said, it's been pre-recorded. Don't have a fit about it. And she said, cool, just hearing about Robert Durst. Robert was in all caps.
Oh.
And then she wrote the name of the guy that said, hello, Mrs. Linda. Do you want some chocolate? She said his name with hearts and then said, how is he? I miss him.
I knew it.
And then finally, she sent me a picture of a mudslide, like the drink. And she said, I just ordered a frozen mudslide and I'm listening to your podcast. Frozen mudslide is the perfect blend of milkshake and cocktail. Tell Christine hello.
Linda gets me.
Linda needs to calm down.
No, she's on it. She's on her game.
She's decided if she can't be a stand-up comedian, she'll just filter her jokes through me.
You know what? Do you know what my mother did? Listen, I called my mother and I said, have you listened to our podcast? She goes, I can't get the video to work. And I was like, it's not a video, it's audio. And so finally I figured out how to tell her to, listen to the podcast. And she goes, great, I downloaded it. I'm almost done. And I was like, where are you? And she's like, I've listened to 8 minutes. And I was like, that's God. And
I'm almost done with your hour show.
Yeah. So like the next, we released episode 2 and she didn't listen to it for days and days. And I was like, Mother, you are so embarrassed. Like, Emily's family is so supportive.
They are.
And I called my mom today and I told her we had, 600 downloads. And she goes, well, I'd like to be a guest on your podcast. I was like, suddenly
0 to 60.
Yeah, suddenly you want to be involved. That's so great. You're such a gold digger. And then she goes, yes. And then my stepdad asked who she was talking to. And she goes, oh, I'm talking to Christina about her ghost story and murder situation show. I was like, are you kidding me?
It sounds like, okay, to be fair, her first language is German, correct?
It is.
It sounds like she tried to explain it to a translator and then it came out like in broken translation.
Murder situation podcast. Her name is much better.
Perfect.
Rolls off the tongue. Anyway, so our parents,
big try.
They try sometimes.
It's okay. The second my mom heard podcasts, I think she heard like potential fame. So.
My mom heard, oh God, another waste of time. But we'll see where it goes. We'll see who's right. Linda or Renata. One of them's going to be right.
Eventually we'll get a picture of both of them.
Oh my.
And then we'll Photoshop them next to each other.
And they're going to be drinking not barefoot wine.
Mudslides, apparently.
Mudslides.
All right. Well, good.
That was fun.
That's a nice happy note. And besides murder,
we needed to end on it. We need to up a palate cleanser.
We went from Elizabeth Smart to our mothers.
There's no other way to go.
It's a good segue.
Yikes. All right, guys. Thanks for listening again. If you have any suggestions, let us know. Tweet us, Facebook us, email us. Also, we are doing, as you know, some mini-sodes with listener stories. So please write us either your ghost or crime stories, and we will feature them on the show. And we love you all, and thank you so much for listening. And that's why
we drink.
Good one.